Hey folks, Paul Reddick here. Welcome back to another edition of the Baseball Dads podcast. Tell me if this rings a bell in any way. Have you ever noticed that every 3, 4, 5 years or so, there's a pitcher that comes on the scene, like a Major League Baseball, that has a unique set of mechanics? And then if they start to enjoy some kind of success, and they have a unique set of mechanics, they almost become like a unicorn. They get a lot of attention because they look different, they're moving different, and because they're enjoying some success, people think that that difference must be the secret to their success. Have you ever seen pitchers on your team, in your league, college, high school, youth, travel, whatever, that literally copy the mechanics of those pitchers, those unique pitchers? So we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the 2 reasons why I don't think you should. But head on over to 567dad.com. 567dad Baseball Edition book will be out October 11th. We have a release date. October 11th, it will be out and ready to go. And if you want to be the first to know, go sign up at 567dad.com. You will be the first to know and get first crack at getting a copy of the book. So I'm really confused at where to start this podcast. So I want to encourage you to listen to the end because I think this would be an eye-opener for you, especially if your son is younger, or if your son is copying some of those mechanics. So I've literally had pitchers on consults, and I'll look at what they're doing and I'll say, well, why are they doing that? And they'll say, oh, well, they're doing that because so-and-so did that and they're trying to mimic so-and-so. And so I've been dealing with this for as long as we've been in business, right? Even going back to like Hideo Nomo with the bow, and Dice K and El Duque had that big kick with pushing his hands down, and Dontrelle Willis had the big sweep and the big leg kick, and now it's Kyle Hendricks with that kind of little glitch in his arm action there, and Clayton Kershaw has that little hitch in his delivery, and by far the biggest one was Tim Lincecum. And I want to talk about this in 2 parts. Number one, I want to talk about why it's not great to copy them because it's not what made them successful. And also is that why it's not great to copy them because what they do is usually not going to last long term. So if you look at most of those pitchers, most of them, with the exception of Kershaw and I don't think Hendricks actually has bad mechanics. I think he's just got a unique look. So I'm going to take him kind of off the table here. But most of those guys, it has not worked out well, right? Dontrelle Willis should still be pitching. He should probably be maybe at the tail end of the prime of his career, maybe rounding his 230th, 240th win at this stage. Jeremy Bonnerman's another one. Tim Lincecum should be smack dab in the prime of his career. And Clayton Kershaw, I think, is a fabulous pitcher, great pitcher. I love watching him. I think long-term he's going to pay a price for the way he moves. So now I know that's going to bring about a lot of comments, a lot of disagreement, and that's fine. But we did the same thing with Tim Lincecum. We came out really hard against the Tim Lincecum delivery, and here's why. Tim Lincecum was whatever he was, 5'10", 5'11", skinny guy, right? 180 pounds, I think he was, or whatever it was, right? He wasn't your prototypical 6'2", 200-pound pitcher. And so what that did is that gave hope to a lot of smaller, skinny pitchers that somehow maybe he had found the secret in this unique delivery. So whatever it was, 7, 8 years ago, we did a webinar called The Lincecum Trap. And in that, we talked about how these mechanics are going to get you hurt. And we provided the historical examples of Sandy Koufax and Dwight Gooden. Now, Sandy Koufax had a great career, but it was like a 6-7 year run. It was a great run, but he ended on an arm injury. Dwight Gooden, same thing, ended on an arm injury. There's other problems too, but I mean, ultimately, he blew out his arm. He lost his greatest tool. So we looked at those mechanics side by side by side, and when you looked at them like that, you were like, wow, now I can see there's a historical pattern here. And we took unbelievable heat saying that Tim Lincecum had bad mechanics because what was being really believed at that time is that somehow he had cracked the code on throwing whatever he was throwing, 97, 98 miles an hour. Here's the deal. You have to understand that you're just genetically gifted people. And Tim Lincecum is a genetic major leaguer in a 5'11 body, the same way Dustin Pedroia is a genetic major leaguer in a smaller body, however tall he is. And Ken Griffey Jr. was a genetic major leaguer in his 6'2", 6'3", whatever he was. And Bryce Harper, they're genetic major leaguers in different bodies. You can't take that equation off, and there's no set of mechanics that's going to overcome that lack of God-given ability. So we came out really hard against it. And like I said, we got terrible email, like awful email. So I prepare to get the same stuff when I say that I don't think Clayton Kershaw is going to have the same career as his contemporaries a generation before him enjoyed. I don't think he's going to see the career of Greg Maddux had, or Randy Johnson had, or Pedro Martinez had. I think he's going to fall short of his potential. Having said that, I love watching him. He's a great competitor. I know from guys that know him and work with him that he's an unbelievable guy, great preparer, and all those other things. I'm just specifically talking about mechanics. But I've had kids who have mimicked the Tim Lincecum delivery. Now remember, it was a delivery that did not work for Tim Lincecum. It worked for whatever, 4 or 5 years. And here's a guy that should be smack dab in the prime of his career and is not pitching in baseball. And I remember saying in that webinar that I don't think his arm is going to go first. I think his body will go first, and then it will be his arm. And his body did go. And then I think his body went so bad that I don't know that it even got a chance to attack his arm. But oftentimes these injuries don't manifest as arm injuries first. And we treat an arm injury differently than we treat a body injury, and we shouldn't. If somebody says my arm hurts, it's, everybody perks up and listens and shuts them down. But if somebody says their ankle hurts, just ice it, right? But you should treat an ankle injury like an arm injury, or hip injury, a knee injury like an arm injury, because usually sometimes those ankle, knee, and hip injuries manifest and become arm injuries much further down the line. That's another podcast. But so getting back to that is that, remember that we're mimicking the things that didn't work for them. And I literally see guys that have like a hitch in their delivery because of Clayton Kershaw. And that's not the secret to his success. It gets a lot of attention because it's different, and it's what we can see on TV. Tim Lincecum's movements were not the secret to his success. So that would be the first thing that I would say, is that mimicking those pitchers, look at how it turns out. And Kershaw is having some problems now. But here's the other thing, and this is probably the most important thing, is that copying Tim Lincecum would be the most un-Tim Lincecum thing that you could do. Copying Clayton Kershaw would be the most un-Clayton Kershaw thing you can do. Here's why. It's because they get attention because they are unique. So what you should copy is that they are unique, and not that of what they do to be unique, because they didn't copy Greg Maddux and Pedro Martinez and Randy Johnson. They're not mimicking their mechanics. And I said, I don't agree with them, but I'm just talking in general terms of like a philosophical approach of why they got attention, is because they're unique. And we're trying to copy them, hoping that that same success would happen for us. But they didn't copy anyone to have that success. The same way that Greg Maddux and Roger Clemens and Randy Johnson and Pedro Martinez, they didn't look like Steve Carlton and Tom Seaver. And they don't look like Nolan Ryan. They all look different, right? So I think what we're trying to copy, if we want to copy anything from some of these pitchers, we should look at their work ethic. We should look at their preparation. And I'm sure if you spent a day preparing, and I know a little bit about this because I know guys who work with them, it's intense. They said Kobe Bryant, whatever it was, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, would be in the gym, and that nobody could outwork Kobe Bryant. And you hear those stories. There was a story about Nolan Ryan that there was a game that got done at like, I don't know, midnight or something. They didn't get back to the hotel until 1 o'clock. And the guy who was training him, they trained every morning at 6 a.m. And he said, well, I guess we'll sleep in a little bit because the game ended a little late. And Nolan Ryan was up 6 a.m. ready to work out. And so if we want to mimic something about these players, why don't we mimic the way they prepare, the way they train, and also mimic, and that the lesson we should take from them is be yourself. Now, whether they're right or wrong, right, it doesn't matter. But Greg Maddux was unique. Randy Johnson was unique. Roger Clemens was unique. Pedro Martinez was unique, and that all worked it out for them, right? So don't copy their uniqueness. Copy that they are unique, and take that as the lesson to be yourself as a pitcher. Now, there are certain things you have to have in delivery, certain things that need to be present. Everybody can look different doing those same things. So Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson, Greg Maddux, Roger Clemens, they all look the same. They all look different, but they're doing the same things to get it done. So don't confuse someone's style with mechanical efficiency. So I know that will get a ton of comments, but here's the thing. I promise you I won't read them. So I don't do social media in this way. So if you want to, go ahead. But if it's directed at me, you'd probably be better off texting your mom or texting your grandma or something with that time. So the 567 Dad book will be out October 11th. Go to 567dad.com. You can check it out there. And thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you next week.